The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. Its silver walls stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of lights blinked along its surface like tiny stars. Inside the station, beings from 47 different worlds gathered for the most important meeting in the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly down the long hallway toward the main meeting room. His black uniform carried the small Earth symbol on the shoulder. Behind him walked 3 other humans. Lisa Park carried a communication device in her hands. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple style. Danny Rodriguez moved with quiet steps, his eyes always watching the corners and doorways. Karen Bell held a tablet computer, reading data that scrolled across the screen. The hallway was huge. Jake felt small walking through it. The walls were built for creatures much larger than humans. Some of the alien species stood 12 feet tall. Others were as wide as small cars. The builders of this station had made everything big enough for the largest members of the Galactic Council. Jake stopped at a large window. Outside he could see hundreds of ships floating in space around the station. Each ship looked different. The Zilani ships were long and thin like silver needles. The Vorthak vessels were thick and heavy like floating mountains. The human ship looked tiny next to them all. It was a small patrol craft called the Ranger. Most aliens barely noticed it. "Captain, we should move," Lisa said quietly. "The meeting starts in 10 minutes. Jake nodded and continued walking. They entered the main meeting chamber through doors that were 30 feet tall. The room inside was enormous. A dome ceiling stretched high above them. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and data from across the galaxy. In the center of the room sat a circle of seats arranged in levels. Each species had their own section built for their size and needs. The human section was small. Only 4 chairs sat in the lowest level. Jake and his team took their seats and looked around the room. Beings from dozens of worlds filled the other sections. Some looked like giant insects. Others appeared to be made of living crystal. A few species seemed to be clouds of gas held together by energy fields. The Zilani ambassador stood up. Her name was High Speaker Veltar. She was 8 feet tall and thin like a glass sculpture. Her skin looked like it was made of clear crystal with blue light flowing inside. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Fellow members of the Galactic Council," she began, "we gather today to discuss matters of peace and trade across our shared galaxy. The quarterly report shows growth in commerce between our worlds. Pirates' attacks on trade ships have decreased by 12%. Jake listened but kept his face blank. He had read the real reports. Pirate attacks were actually getting worse, much worse. Entire merchant fleets had gone missing in the past month. The Zilani liked to make everything sound better than it really was. The Vorthak representative stood up next. His name was War Chief Gracton. He was 12 feet tall and covered in thick gray skin like armor. 2 large tusks grew from his lower jaw. His small red eyes looked around the room with barely hidden anger. "The crystal speakers lie with their pretty words," Gracton said in a deep voice that shook the floor. "Pirates grow stronger every day. They attack with better weapons and faster ships. Some say they have found new allies. Strong allies." Veltar's crystal skin flashed with annoyance. "War Chief Gracton speaks of rumors and fear. The Council has always solved problems through peaceful discussion." Gracton turned his massive head toward the human section, his red eyes fixed on Jake. "And what do the soft humans think? Your people have been here only 3 years. You know nothing of real war. Your ships are weak. Your bodies are small. How can you understand what strength means?" The room became quiet. Many eyes turned to look at the humans. Jake felt the weight of their attention. He had faced this kind of talk many times before. Most alien species saw humans as weak and useless. Earth's military files were classified at the highest levels. The other species had no idea what humans were really capable of. Jake stood up slowly. His voice was calm and steady. "War Chief Gracton is right about one thing. We are new to the Council. But Earth has dealt with pirates and raiders for thousands of years. We know that sometimes peaceful words are not enough." "Peaceful words are all your kind has," another voice called out. The speaker was a hegemony representative. They looked like large spiders with purple fur. "Your weapons are simple. Your ships are slow. You have no armies worth mentioning." Lisa shifted in her seat next to Jake. Her hand moved slightly toward the communication device on her belt. Danny's eyes got a little harder as he looked around the room. Karen kept reading her tablet, but Jake could see her fingers moving faster across the screen. "Perhaps that is true," Jake said with a small smile. We prefer to solve problems with words when possible. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. Different species brought up trade disputes and border arguments. The Zilani tried to keep everyone calm. The Vorthak wanted to solve everything with shows of force. Smaller species asked for protection from larger ones. Through it all, Jake and his team sat quietly and listened. Jake noticed something that worried him. Several species mentioned ships going missing in the outer regions. Supply convoys had stopped arriving on schedule. Communication with remote colonies had been cut off. The reports painted a picture of organized attacks, not random piracy. Karen leaned over and whispered to him, "Captain, I'm seeing patterns in the data. The missing ships all disappeared along the same trade routes. Someone is cutting off supply lines in a very careful way." Jake nodded slightly. On Earth, they had seen this kind of pattern before. It meant someone was preparing for a much larger attack. Cut the supply lines first, then hit the main targets when they were weak and isolated. The meeting was almost over when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. A computerized voice spoke in 12 different languages at once. "Emergency alert! Unknown vessels detected. All personnel to emergency stations." The giant screens on the walls changed to show space around the station. Dozens of dark ships had appeared out of nowhere. They surrounded Nexus Prime in a perfect circle. The ships were black as deep space and covered with weapon ports that glowed with red light. Panic started in the chamber. Some aliens ran for the exits. Others tried to contact their home worlds. The Zilani moved in quick, nervous jerks. The Vorthak reached for weapons that were not there. A new voice came through the communication systems. It was deep and full of hate. "Members of the Weak Council, I am Bloodfang, leader of the Savage Collective. Your time of soft words and gentle trading is over. We have returned to claim what is ours." Jake felt something change inside him. It was small at first, like a door opening in the back of his mind. His calm, diplomatic face did not change, but his eyes became harder. Lisa noticed it first. She had worked with Jake for 3 years and knew that look. Danny felt it too and straightened in his chair. Even Karen looked up from her tablet. "Surrender your station and all vessels," Bloodfang continued. "Those who resist will feed our engines. Those who comply will serve as slaves. You have 1 hour to decide." The chamber erupted in voices as different species shouted in fear and anger. In all the noise and panic, no one noticed Jake Morrison standing perfectly still. His head slightly tilted like he was listening to something very far away. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time was starting to wake up. The first explosion shook the entire station. Emergency lights bathed the council chamber in flashing red. Alien voices screamed in dozens of languages as the massive space station shuddered under weapons fire. Jake Morrison remained perfectly still while chaos erupted around him. His 3 team members had moved closer without him saying a word. Lisa Park's fingers danced over her communication device. Danny Rodriguez scanned the room with eyes that had suddenly become very alert. Karen Bell pulled up technical displays on her tablet, but her movements were different now. Faster, more focused. "The shields are holding but dropping fast," Karen said quietly. Her voice was calm despite the panic around them. "Enemy weapons are military grade, not pirate technology." High Speaker Veltar tried to restore order. Her crystal body flashed with nervous blue light. "All representatives must remain calm. Our security forces will handle this situation. Please move to the emergency shelters in an orderly fashion." War Chief Gracton pushed smaller aliens aside as he moved toward the exits. "Your pretty security cannot stop real warriors. We must reach our ships and fight." But the exits were already blocked. Savage Collective soldiers had breached the outer hull in multiple places. The sounds of weapons fire echoed through the corridors outside the chamber. Screams came from the hallways as station security tried to fight back. Jake watched the tactical display on the main screens. The attacking fleet had positioned itself perfectly. No ship could escape without running through their weapons fire. The enemy knew exactly where every defense system was located. This was not a random attack. Someone had planned this very carefully. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "I'm picking up communications between the enemy ships. They're using old hegemony military codes, the ones that were supposed to be destroyed 50 years ago." Jake nodded once. His face had not changed, but something in his eyes was different. Colder, more calculating. He looked at each of his team members. They looked back at him with understanding that needed no words. Danny moved away from the group. He walked casually toward one of the maintenance panels built into the chamber walls. To anyone watching, he looked like he was checking the station's emergency systems. In reality, he was memorizing the layout of every air vent, service tunnel, and access shaft. Karen continued working on her tablet. Data flowed across the screen too fast for most people to read. She was downloading everything. Station blueprints, security protocols, enemy ship specifications, weapon systems data. Her science training was revealing weaknesses that military minds might miss. Lisa appeared to be trying to contact Earth for help. What she was really doing was much more complicated. Her communication device was breaking into the station's main computer systems. She was also sliding into the enemy ship's networks like a ghost. Her fingers moved in patterns that looked random but were actually the result of years of training. The chamber doors burst open. Savage collective soldiers poured in. They were huge creatures covered in black armor. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that looked like skull masks. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The lead soldier pointed his weapon at the crowd of alien representatives. "All of you on the ground, now. Anyone who moves dies." Most of the aliens dropped down immediately. The Vorthak tried to resist, but the soldiers stunned them with energy blasts. War Chief Gracton fell unconscious with smoke rising from his thick hide. Jake and his team slowly knelt down with the others. But Jake's eyes never stopped moving. He counted soldiers. He noted their weapons and armor. He memorized their positions and movement patterns. Every detail went into his memory. One of the soldiers walked up to High Speaker Veltar. "You are the leader here?" "I am the council speaker, yes," she replied. Her crystal voice shook with fear. The soldier grabbed her arm. "You come with us. The rest stay here and wait to die." That was when Jake moved. He came up from the floor like a spring uncoiling. His movement was so smooth and fast that the soldiers barely saw it happen. Jake's hand struck the soldier holding Veltar in exactly the right spot. The alien warrior dropped unconscious before he could make a sound. Jake had the soldier's weapon before the body hit the floor. He rolled behind a council seat as the other enemies opened fire. Energy bolts burned through the air where he had been standing. "Lisa, now," Jake said quietly. All the lights in the chamber went out. Emergency power died. The gravity generators flickered off and on. In the darkness, Jake moved like he could see perfectly. The attacking soldiers stumbled and cursed as their helmet systems tried to adjust. Danny appeared behind two soldiers. He had come through an air vent that should have been too small for a person his size. The improvised weapon in his hands looked like it was made from maintenance tools, but it worked perfectly. Both soldiers went down without firing a shot. Karen had not moved from her position on the floor, but her tablet was connected to the station's main systems now. She was turning the Savage Collective's own technology against them. Doors slammed shut, trapping some soldiers. Air pressure changed in specific corridors, making it hard for others to breathe. She was fighting a war with computer code. The remaining soldiers in the chamber tried to form a defensive position, but Jake and Danny had already moved. They flowed around the room like shadows. They struck from behind, from above, from directions that should have been impossible. Jake's movements were not like anything the aliens had ever seen. He did not fight with honor or follow rules of combat. He used every trick, every advantage, every dirty method that worked. He was not trying to defeat enemies in fair battle. He was hunting prey. One soldier managed to grab Lisa. He put his weapon to her head and shouted, "Stop or the female dies." Jake appeared right beside him. The soldier never saw him coming. Jake's hand moved once, very precisely. The soldier's weapon clattered to the floor. The alien warrior followed it down, unconscious but still breathing. In less than 3 minutes, all 12 Savage Collective soldiers in the chamber were down. None of them were dead, but they would not wake up for several hours. The alien representative stared in shock at what they had just witnessed. "How?" whispered High Speaker Veltar. Her crystal body flickered with confused light. "Your people are not warriors. You have no military training. How did you do this?" Jake helped her stand up. His diplomatic smile was back in place, but his eyes still held that cold, calculating look. "We had good teachers." War Chief Gracton was awake again. He looked at the unconscious soldiers scattered around the room. Then he looked at Jake with something that might have been respect.
"What teachers could show soft humans to fight like pack hunters?"
"Earth," Danny said simply as he checked his improvised weapon. "Earth taught us." Before anyone could ask what that meant, Lisa's communication device crackled to life. A new voice came through the speakers. It was calm and professional, but there was something underneath it that made the alien representative step backward. Nexus Prime, this is Captain Betty Shaw of the Earth Vessel Ranger. We show multiple hostile contacts around your position. Are you in need of assistance? Jake picked up the communication device. When he spoke, his voice carried a tone that none of the aliens had heard from humans before. It was the voice of someone who was used to giving orders in life and death situations. Ranger, this is Morrison. The station is under attack by savage collective forces. We have the council chamber secured, but enemy soldiers control most of the station. How many friendlies do you have in the area? There was a pause. Then Captain Shaw's voice came back with something that sounded almost like amusement. More than enough, Captain. We've been waiting for someone to give us a reason to stop pretending. On the main display screen, something impossible happened. Ships appeared out of empty space around Nexus Prime. Not just one or two ships, but dozens of them. They had been there all along, hidden by technology that the Galactic Council did not know humans possessed. The savage collective fleet suddenly found themselves surrounded. War Chief Gracton stared at the display. His voice was barely above a whisper. How long have your people been watching us? Jake looked at the screens showing human warships decloaking around the station. Ships that were sleek and dangerous and nothing like the peaceful patrol vessel the Council thought represented Earth's military. Since the day we joined the Council, Jake said quietly, we hoped we would never need to show you what we really brought to this alliance. The hunt was about to begin. The human ships moved through space like hunting wolves. They did not charge forward in straight lines like the Vorthak war vessels. They did not dance in elegant formations like the Zelani fleet. Instead, they flowed around the savage collective ships in patterns that seemed random but were perfectly coordinated. Jake Morrison stood in the council chamber watching the battle on the main screens. His team worked around him with silent efficiency. Lisa had her communication device connected to the station's systems, coordinating with every human on Nexus Prime. Danny had disappeared again, but Jake could track his progress through the maintenance tunnels. By the way, enemy soldiers kept falling unconscious in distant corridors. Karen typed rapidly on her tablet, turning the station itself into a weapon. The alien representatives watched in stunned silence. They had known humans for 3 years as quiet diplomats who rarely spoke in council meetings. Now they were seeing something completely different, something that made primitive parts of their brains whisper warnings about predators and pack hunters. Captain Morrison, High Speaker Veltar said carefully, your ships move in ways we have never seen. What kind of tactics are these? Jake glanced at her. Old ones. Very old. On the screens, a group of savage collective vessels tried to break through the human formation. 3 human ships moved to intercept them. Instead of meeting them head-on, the human vessels split apart at the last second. They came at the enemy ships from above and below and both sides at once. The savage collective ships found themselves caught in crossfire from directions they had not expected. War Chief Gracton watched with growing amazement. They fight like a pack of predators surrounding prey. But in space combat, such tactics should be impossible. Ship sensors prevent surprise attacks. Not if you know how to hide, Jake said quietly. Karen looked up from her tablet. Captain, I have control of sections 7 through 12. Danny is in position near the main reactor. Lisa has tapped into their command communications. Jake nodded. To the watching aliens, it looked like he was barely paying attention to the battle. In reality, he was processing information from dozens of sources at once. Every human on the station was feeding him data. Every human ship in the fleet was reporting their status. He was conducting a complex military operation while appearing to have casual conversations. How many enemy soldiers are still active on the station? He asked. Approximately 200, Karen replied. They control the main corridors and the reactor room. But they are starting to spread out to search for us. That was a mistake, Jake almost smiled. Yes, it was. The Savage Collective had made a fundamental error. They were used to fighting species that gathered together when threatened. Humans did the opposite. When humans were threatened, they scattered and became individual hunters. Each one became dangerous in their own way. Danny's voice came through Lisa's communication device. Reactor room secured. No casualties on our side. The enemy soldiers are unconscious and restrained. How many were in there? Jake asked. 15. They never saw me coming. High Speaker Veltar stared at the communication device. 1 human defeated 15 Savage Collective warriors? That is impossible. They are elite soldiers, each one worth 10 normal fighters. Danny is not a normal fighter, Jake said simply. More reports came in from other humans scattered throughout the station. Maintenance worker Tim Chen had disabled a squad of enemies by turning off artificial gravity in their section, and then turning it back on at triple strength. Security guard Maria Santos had trapped 12 soldiers in a storage bay by reprogramming the door locks. Engineer Paul Williams had flooded an entire deck with harmless but blinding smoke, then picked off the confused enemies one by one. The aliens watching began to understand something disturbing. The humans were not just winning through superior technology or numbers. They were winning because they thought differently. They saw opportunities where other species saw only problems. They turned the station itself into an ally. On the main screens, the space battle was reaching its climax. The Savage Collective Fleet commander had realized his ships were being systematically destroyed. He made a desperate choice. His flagship charged directly at Nexus Prime, planning to ram the station and destroy it. Captain Betty Shaw's voice came through the communications. Nexus Prime hostile flagship is on collision course. We can intercept, but not without significant damage to the station from the explosion. Jake picked up the communication device. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute confidence. Negative, Ranger. Let them come. Every alien in the chamber turned to stare at him. War Chief Gracton growled in disbelief. Human captain, that ship will destroy this station. Millions will die. Jake looked at Karen. She was already typing on her tablet. How long do you need? 30 seconds, she replied without looking up. The enemy flagship grew larger on the screen as it approached. Its weapons fired continuously at the station's shields. Sparks flew from damaged systems throughout Nexus Prime. The alien representatives began to panic again, but Jake remained calm. 20 seconds, Karen said. The Savage Collective ship was close enough now that individual weapon ports were visible on its hull. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than any human vessel. Its ram-reinforced nose was designed to punch through station armor like it was paper. 10 seconds. Jake watched the approaching ship with the patience of a hunter, waiting for prey to step into a trap. The other humans in the chamber were equally calm. They trusted their teammate completely. Now, Karen said. She pressed a single button on her tablet. The enemy flagship's engines went dead, all of them simultaneously. The massive ship continued forward on momentum alone, but without power it began to tumble slowly. Its weapon systems flickered and died. Life support failed in sections throughout the vessel. What did you do? High speaker Veltar whispered. Karen looked up from her tablet with satisfaction. I gave their computers a virus. Something we developed on Earth for dealing with electronic systems that are not properly protected. Their ship's artificial intelligence is now very confused about which way is up. The dead flagship drifted past Nexus Prime, missing the station by several miles. Its crew would live, but their ship was completely disabled. The rest of the Savage Collective fleet, seeing their command ship helpless, began to retreat. But Jake was not finished. Lisa, open a channel to the collective fleet. All frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Jake took the communication device. When he spoke, his voice was broadcast to every Savage Collective ship in the area. But he did not speak in the common galactic language. He spoke in the collective's own tongue, using words and phrases that showed deep knowledge of their culture and military traditions. The alien representatives were shocked. None of them knew Jake could speak the Savage Collective language. Most of them had never heard a human speak anything other than common galactic standard. Warriors of the Savage Collective, Jake said, his pronunciation perfect. Your Bloodfang challenged this station to combat. We accepted. Your strongest ship lies broken. Your soldiers sleep in our custody. By your own laws of battle, you have been defeated by a superior pack. He paused, letting his words sink in. Around the chamber, alien representatives leaned forward to hear better. You have 3 choices, Jake continued. First, you can continue this attack and learn what happens when Earth's children stop holding back. Second, you can retreat now and never return to Council space. Third, you can surrender and face trial for your crimes against peaceful worlds. The communication channel crackled with angry voices from the collective ships. Their language was harsh and full of threats. But underneath the bluster, Jake could hear uncertainty. They had not expected resistance like this. They had certainly not expected to be addressed in their own language by someone who clearly understood their warrior culture. The Savage Collective fleet began to withdraw. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed as human ships moved to escort them out of the system. Within an hour, the last enemy vessel jumped to hyperspace. Jake set down the communication device and looked around the chamber. Every alien representative was staring at him with a mixture of fear, respect, and confusion. War Chief Gracton spoke first. His deep voice was quieter than before. "Human Captain, your people fought with the skill of apex predators. But you also showed mercy to defeated enemies. This is unusual. We learned a long time ago that the strongest predator is the one that chooses when to hunt and when to show restraint," Jake replied. High Speaker Veltar's crystal body pulsed with thoughtful blue light. "How long have your people possessed such capabilities?" Jake looked at each of his team members. They had returned to their diplomatic roles, but something fundamental had changed. The mask of harmless, peace-loving humans had slipped, and it would never fit quite the same way again. "We have always had them," Jake said quietly. "We just hoped you would never need to see them. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again." The silence in the council chamber was broken by a deep rumbling laugh. It came from the main communication speakers and carried a sound like grinding stone and bitter hatred. The laugh belonged to Bloodfang, leader of the Savage Collective. "Clever little humans," Bloodfang's voice echoed through the chamber. "You think you have won because you destroyed a few ships and captured some soldiers. But you know nothing of true strength." Jake Morrison stood perfectly still as the alien leader's voice filled the room. Around him, the various species representatives looked nervous. They had just watched humans defeat an entire fleet, but something in Bloodfang's tone suggested the battle was not over. "I am Bloodfang, destroyer of worlds, breaker of armies," the voice continued. "For 800 years I have conquered civilizations across 12 star systems. Your tricks and hidden ships mean nothing to me." High Speaker Veltar stepped forward, her crystal body flickering with worried light. "Bloodfang, your fleet has been defeated. Your soldiers are captured. By any measure of civilized warfare, this conflict is over." Another rumbling laugh came through the speakers. "Civilized warfare is for weak species who fear true combat. I challenge the strongest warrior on this station to face me in single combat. If your champion wins, the collective will leave this space forever. If I win, everyone on this station becomes my slave." War Chief Gracton pounded his massive fist against his chest. "I accept your challenge, creature. The Vorthak have never fled from combat." "No," Jake said quietly. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. Gracton's small red eyes blazed with anger. "Human, you have no right to speak. This is a matter for real warriors." Jake looked at the Vorthak chief with calm eyes. "Bloodfang did not challenge you specifically. He challenged the strongest warrior on this station. That would be me." The chamber erupted in voices. Several species representatives began talking at once. The idea of a human claiming to be the strongest fighter present seemed ridiculous to most of them. Gracton laughed, a sound like boulders falling. You are barely half my size. I could break you with one hand." "Probably," Jake agreed. "In a contest of pure strength, you would win easily. But that is not what makes someone the strongest warrior." Danny Rodriguez stepped up beside his captain. His voice was respectful but firm. "Captain, permission to take this challenge myself. I have more combat training." "Denied," Jake replied. "This is not about who has the most training. It is about sending the right message." Lisa Park finished checking her communication device and looked up. "Captain, I have confirmed Bloodfang's location. He is on the disabled flagship approximately 2 miles from the station. The ship still has life support and gravity, but no weapons or shields." Karen Bell read data from her tablet. "Scans show Bloodfang is approximately 12 feet tall and weighs roughly 800 pounds. His species has natural armor plating and enhanced muscle density. He is also carrying multiple weapons." Jake nodded as if this information was helpful rather than terrifying. "What about the combat area?" "The ship's main cargo bay has been cleared. Artificial gravity is set to standard levels. No other weapons or equipment are present." High Speaker Veltar moved closer to Jake. Her crystal voice carried genuine concern. "Captain Morrison, this creature has killed thousands of beings in personal combat. He is not just large and strong. He is a master of multiple fighting styles and completely without mercy." "I know," Jake said simply. "Then why?" asked Gracton. "Why would you face certain death for aliens you barely know?" Jake looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 different species. Some had treated humans with respect during their 3 years on the council. Others had dismissed them as weak and insignificant. But all of them were looking at him now with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. Because that is what pack leaders do, Jake said. They protect the pack. The journey to Bloodfang's ship took 20 minutes. Jake rode in a small shuttle with his 3 team members. The alien representatives watched through the station's cameras as the shuttle docked with the disabled flagship. Jake wore simple clothes and carried no weapons. His team had offered him armor and guns, but he had refused. Bloodfang will respect strength more than technology, he had explained. The cargo bay of the Savage Collective ship was enormous. It could have held 100 smaller vessels. Now it was empty except for 2 figures standing at opposite ends. Bloodfang waited in the center, a massive creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a dragon. His natural armor was dark red and scarred from countless battles. Claws extended from his hands and feet. His teeth were like daggers. Jake walked calmly across the bay toward his opponent. He looked tiny compared to the alien warlord, but his movement was smooth and confident. Every step was placed exactly where he intended. Bloodfang watched him approach with yellow eyes that held no emotion except mild curiosity. So the humans send their smallest warrior to face me. Is this meant as an insult? No, Jake replied, stopping about 10 feet away. It is meant as a lesson. The alien warlord tilted his massive head. What lesson could a creature like you possibly teach me? Jake's expression did not change, but something shifted in his posture. The relaxed diplomat disappeared, replaced by something that had been hunting and killing for millions of years of evolution. That size is not strength, armor is not invincibility, and the most dangerous predator is the one you underestimate. Bloodfang laughed and charged forward with surprising speed for something so large. His claws reached out to grab Jake and tear him apart. It should have been over in seconds. Jake was not there when the claws arrived. He had moved sideways and forward at the same time, slipping past Bloodfang's reach like water flowing around a rock. As the alien warlord's momentum carried him forward, Jake struck with precise force at a spot just behind Bloodfang's left knee. The massive creature stumbled but did not fall. He spun around with a backhand strike that would have shattered stone. Jake ducked under it and struck again, this time at a nerve cluster in Bloodfang's elbow. The alien's left arm went numb. Bloodfang roared in anger and tried to grab Jake with his remaining good arm. Jake rolled between his legs and came up behind him. 2 quick strikes to the base of Bloodfang's spine made the creature's tail stop working properly. The watching aliens in the council chamber stared in amazement. They were seeing something that should have been impossible. A human weighing less than 200 pounds was systematically taking apart a creature that weighed 4 times as much and had natural weapons that could cut through steel. Bloodfang was not stupid. He realized quickly that brute force was not working. He began to move more carefully, using techniques learned from centuries of combat. He feinted with his right hand while striking with his left foot. He used his tail as a weapon and his weight as a tool. But Jake had grown up on a world where everything wanted to kill humans. His species had survived by being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. Every movement Bloodfang made had been used by some predator on Earth. Jake's ancestors had learned to counter all of them. The fight continued for 20 minutes. Bloodfang landed several hits that sent Jake flying across the cargo bay. Each time, Jake rolled with the impact and came back up, moving just as smoothly as before. Meanwhile, Bloodfang was slowing down. The precise strikes to his nerve centers were taking effect. His left arm hung useless. His balance was off. His breathing was becoming labored. Jake had not tried to kill or seriously injure his opponent. Instead, he was slowly shutting down Bloodfang's ability to fight. Like a wolf bringing down an elk, he was patient and methodical. Finally, Bloodfang fell to one knee. His massive chest heaved as he struggled to breathe. Jake stood a few feet away, showing no signs of serious injury despite being thrown around the cargo bay multiple times. "How?" Bloodfang gasped. "You are so small, so weak." Jake walked closer but stayed just outside the alien's reach. "I am not weak. I am human. We learned long ago that the biggest predator does not always win. The smartest one does." Bloodfang tried to stand, but his damaged nervous system would not cooperate. He looked up at Jake with something that might have been respect. "I have fought warriors from 100 worlds. None of them moved like you. What kind of creature are you?" Jake knelt down so he could look Bloodfang in the eye. I am the descendant of the only species to survive on a death world where everything was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were. We survived by learning to hunt in packs, to think before we acted, and to never give up. He stood up and stepped back. The fight is over, you lost. By your own challenge rules, you must withdraw from council space forever. Bloodfang nodded slowly. I will honor the terms. But first, tell me one thing. How many humans are there? On Earth? About 10 billion. The alien warlord's eyes widened with something that looked like fear. 10 billion creatures like you? Jake smiled for the first time since the fight began. Actually, I am not even considered particularly dangerous by human standards. I am a diplomat. Bloodfang closed his eyes and was quiet for a long moment. When he opened them again, his voice was different, respectful. I understand now why your people choose to be peaceful. Jake Morrison stepped off the shuttle and back into the council chamber of Nexus Prime. The alien representatives had watched the entire fight through the station's cameras. Now they looked at him with eyes that held something new, fear mixed with respect, understanding mixed with worry. The chamber was completely silent as Jake walked to his seat. His uniform was torn and dirty from the fight. A small cut on his forehead had dried into a dark line, but he moved with the same calm confidence he had always shown. The only difference was that now everyone knew what that calmness really meant. High Speaker Veltar was the first to speak. Her crystal voice was softer than before. Captain Morrison, what you have done today will be remembered across the galaxy. You defeated one of the most feared warriors in known space. Jake sat down and looked around the chamber. His 3 team members had returned to their positions beside him. Danny was cleaning his improvised weapons. Lisa was checking her communication device. Karen was reading new data on her tablet. They all acted like defeating an entire invasion fleet was just part of their normal workday. Bloodfang was not evil, Jake said quietly. He was a product of his culture, a warrior doing what warriors do. The real victory today was not in the fight. It was in showing that different ways of thinking can solve problems that pure force cannot. War Chief Grakton shifted in his massive chair. His red eyes studied Jake with new understanding. Human Captain, I have watched many battles in my lifetime. I have seen strength defeat weakness, speed defeat strength, and cunning defeat speed. But today I saw something different. You fought like someone who understood his enemy better than the enemy understood himself. That is what my people learned to do on Earth, Jake replied. When you are smaller and weaker than everything that wants to kill you, you learn to think instead of just react. The hegemony representative, the spider-like creature who had mocked human military capabilities earlier, spoke in a much more respectful tone.
Captain Morrison, your people have hidden their true nature from us for 3 years. Why?
Jake looked at the screen showing space around Nexus Prime. The human fleet was still there, no longer hidden. Dozens of sleek warships that had appeared from nowhere when the fighting started. Ships that clearly represented technology and military thinking far beyond what the Council had imagined humans possessed. Because we hoped we would never need to show you, Jake said. We came to the Council seeking friendship and trade. We wanted to learn from other species and share what we had discovered. War was not part of our plan. Lisa Park looked up from her communication device. Captain, I am receiving messages from governments across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know about Earth's military capabilities. Some are asking for protection agreements. Others are requesting technology sharing. And some are probably planning preemptive attacks before we become too strong, Danny added quietly. Karen Bell scrolled through data on her tablet. Long-range sensors are detecting ship movements in 17 different systems. Several major powers are repositioning their fleets. The galaxy is reacting to what happened here today. Jake nodded thoughtfully. He had expected this. Showing Earth's true strength would change everything. Some species would want to become allies. Others would see humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it grew too powerful. High Speaker Veltar moved closer to the human section. Captain Morrison, what will Earth do now? Your people have revealed capabilities that could easily dominate the galaxy. Many species will fear what comes next. Nothing comes next, Jake said simply. We will continue doing what we have always done. We will trade with those who want to trade. We will defend those who ask for our help. We will explore new worlds and learn new things. The only difference is that now you know we can defend ourselves if necessary. The Vorthak chief leaned forward in his chair. But surely your people will want to expand their territory. Take control of strategic systems. Build an empire worthy of your strength. Jake shook his head. War Chief Gracton, Earth has everything we need. Good worlds to live on. Resources for our people and friends among the stars. Why would we want to conquer other worlds when we can simply trade for what we need? Because you can, said a new voice from the back of the chamber. Because power exists to be used. The speaker was Ambassador Keth of the Dominion Alliance, a collection of aggressive species that had always pushed for military solutions to galactic problems. His reptilian features showed obvious concern about the shift in power balance. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. His movement was casual, but every alien present was now acutely aware of what those casual movements could become if necessary. Ambassador Keth, you are thinking like someone who grew up on a world where strength was the only thing that mattered. But humans learned something different. We learned that the strongest predator is not the one that kills the most prey. It is the one that knows when not to hunt. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of different worlds. Earth's children do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to be part of it. Today was not about showing how powerful we are. It was about showing that peaceful species can defend themselves when they have to. Karen Bell stood up and activated the chamber's main display. Data flowed across the screens showing trade routes, colony worlds, resource-sharing agreements, and diplomatic treaties. This is what humans really want, she said. Prosperity for everyone, safety for peaceful worlds, knowledge shared between species. And the strength to protect all of it, Danny added quietly. The alien representative studied the data in silence. The human vision of the galaxy was not one of conquest and domination. It was one of cooperation backed by the ability to defend that cooperation from those who would destroy it. High Speaker Veltar spoke for all of them. What you are describing is not empire building. It is pack behavior. You see all peaceful species as part of your pack. Exactly, Jake said. On Earth, the pack protects its members. The strong defend the weak. Everyone contributes what they can, and everyone benefits from the group's success. War Chief Gracton laughed, but it was not a mocking sound this time. I understand now why you defeated Bloodfang so easily. He was thinking like a lone predator trying to dominate territory. You were thinking like a pack leader protecting your family. Lisa Park's communication device chimed with an incoming message. She listened for a moment, then looked up with a slight smile. Captain, this is interesting. Bloodfang's fleet is not retreating to Savage Collective space. They are requesting permission to join the Council as a protectorate world. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. The idea of the Savage Collective asking for protection was almost impossible to believe. Jake was not surprised. Bloodfang is a warrior, but he is not stupid. He knows that his people have been fighting a losing battle against stronger enemies for centuries. Today he learned there is another way. Ambassador Keth hissed in displeasure. You are saying that by showing strength you convinced enemies to become allies. I am saying that by showing controlled strength we gave them a choice, Jake replied. They could continue fighting everyone and eventually lose everything. Or they could join a pack that is strong enough to protect them. The debate continued for hours. Some species were excited about the new possibilities. Others were worried about how the balance of power had shifted. But all of them understood that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. As the session finally ended, Jake Morrison filed his official report. Under the section marked Incident Summary, he wrote, Minor security situation resolved. No permanent damage to station systems. Diplomatic relations remain stable. Danny Rodriguez read over his shoulder and grinned. Minor security situation, Captain. It was Tuesday afternoon, Jake replied with a straight face. What else would you call it? Lisa Park finished her final communication with Earth Command. Captain, they want to know when we will be returning home for debriefing. Tell them we will be here for a while longer, Jake said. It seems we have some new pack members to help integrate into the Council. Karen Bell looked up from her tablet one last time. Captain, the long-range sensors are showing something interesting. Several major powers are standing down their military alerts. It looks like the galaxy is choosing cooperation over conflict. Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars through the chamber's great windows. Good. That was always the plan. High Speaker Veltar approached him as the other representatives filed out of the chamber. Captain Morrison, may I ask you one final question? Of course. When you first arrived at the Council 3 years ago, did you know this day would come? Jake considered the question carefully. We hoped it would not be necessary. but we prepared for the possibility. Earth's children learned long ago that the best way to avoid a fight is to be ready for one. The crystal being flickered with understanding, and now the galaxy knows that humanity is ready. Yes, Jake said quietly. Now they know. As Nexus Prime returned to normal operations and the human fleet resumed its hidden watch over Council space, one truth became clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity had been holding back for 3 years, not out of weakness, but out of kindness. That kindness had limits.